Can everybody see the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll
Still
upload
just
the
waiting
agenda.
for that script to come through in my email. There we go.
Tracy, I just sent you the link. Alex, did you receive it?
I did. So as soon as I know we're live, I'll get started.
Okay, Tracy will be posting it soon.
Hey, I posted it. Let me go verify that it is working before we begin. Okay, you're good to go.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And please know that any comments by the public are welcome and can be emailed to publiccomment@lsbme.la.gov. Dr. Collada, would you please confirm you verified the identity of all tele and video conference participants?
Yes, ma'am, we have, and everything is audible to me, and I assume to all of you.
And all additions to the executive or public agenda must be made presently, as we will no longer make additions to the agenda until after the close of the public session. So as I indicated in my email, I would like to add one agenda item so I'll tell you about it and then we can vote to whether that should be added. But I was just made aware about 15 minutes ago that LSBME is no longer issuing temporary GC licenses. And there is actually a genetic counselor who is trying to apply for one. So this is imminently impacting somebody's ability to practice. So I'd love to find out when that took effect and talk through what options board eligible, but GCs who have not yet passed their boards, what options they have here. So all in favor to add the temporary GC licensure discussion to the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right, so we'll go ahead and add that to the agenda. Thank you. All right, and all four committee members are present. Let's see, Hillary, Janani, Hannah Meadow,
Present.
and Nikki Wilano.
Present.
Okay, as am I. All right. All right, sorry, just working through the.
Did you want to take your added agenda item first, or do you want to put it somewhere in there?
Sure, we can go through that. So I just pulled up because the LSBME website, because a genetic counselor new to the area emailed me asking what duties she would be able to perform as a recent graduate, but board eligible genetic counselor who is planning to take her boards in August. And I said, well, you should get a temporary GC license. You would need a supervising medical geneticist or GC. And then she sent me to the website that says we're no longer issuing temporary GC licenses. So if anybody has any idea when that took effect or why and what we should be telling.
It took effect about 16 months ago. We put it on the webpage. The board decided that there was too much risk in temporary licensing unless it's a period of emergency, such as a COVID or a Katrina when we needed people, we would grant them temporary licenses. What really we found out is that people would get a temporary license, never renew it, but continue to practice in some other in areas. We know as you know, we license 15 types of licensing. So we don't grant temporary licensing anymore because it's become a problem and people abusing it. And the issue with the temporary license also is, if they're supposed to be board certified to get a license, or board or certified by whatever, then let's get them certified. And if they're not certified, we don't want to grant the license, because the issue is that's what the requirement is. So the temporaries were always put in there as an option. They were never put in there as a mandatory.
Okay, so two things to that. Number one, I do know for a fact that genetic counselors that were hired less than 16 months ago were able to, like even 11 months ago, were able to obtain temporary GC licenses.
We put it on the website for a couple of 6 or 8 months, and then we implemented it throughout the agency, so everybody had a chance to know about it.
Our own committee wasn't even told. So the
Well, let me say
problem
this to you.
is,
We post everything on the website in the news, and everybody has access to that anytime, okay? Again, we sent out a lot of emails to people, and we told them that this was coming, and you know, I'm sorry that you didn't know. I apologize that you didn't know. But the fact of the matter is, the board has made that decision, and I have to honor it.
so the issue with genetic counseling in particular, contrary to other professions where you can get a license even if you haven't passed a board exam, you can't get a license for us if you haven't passed a board exam. And we already had a certain number of times during the year where you can take it. So for instance, we might have a new graduate who would be without an income, without a job, without health insurance in this scenario for months until they're able to take the boards in either August or the
And all
following
of the other
February.
specialties are complying, okay? OTs, ATs, RTs, physicians, you know, they have to have passed their boards to get the license too. I mean, it's not
Do
just
they?
people. Oh, absolutely.
I don't think,
A physician cannot get a license to practice until they have passed step 3 of the USMLE, all 3 steps.
the step, right, like in medical school, not
1
a,
and 2 are in medical school, 3 is after medical school.
right, but that's different than like the board exams that you get from the American College of Surgeons, for example, or something that you take afterwards, and that's more equivalent to what our situation is. This is
Well,
a
we
post,
do not
a
license-
separate.
We do not license specialist physicians. We license physicians and surgeons. And the requirement in the rules say that they have to complete that certification examination. You all have a certification examination requirement as well. Now, you can call it board, you can call it certifying exam, whatever it is. You all have to have it. So we have to follow the rules. That's what the board wanted. They wanted, unless, you know, obviously if there's a Katrina, if there's a COVID, we'll be granting temporary licenses. But the issue here is that when, in the absence of routine, the board felt it was better to have everybody complete their training, be certified by their training requirements, and before they go into practice to take care of it, protects the public. So suppose they
Yeah,
grant a temporary license and they
again,
never pass the exam.
you know, we're in a newer, smaller profession where there's a limited amount of times that people can even take the board exam, and it's not something that they do immediately after their schooling. Like it's not part of the graduation requirement to take that exam. So I
It is
don't,
part of the board's requirement for licensure.
right, under the assumption that a provider could get temporary licensure in that
Well,
in-between period. So
no,
right
the
now, if we're
temporary
saying
license is
that a
always
genetic
an
counselor
option. It is
cannot
not
practice without a
mandatory.
license, then somebody who is board eligible may not be able to practice at all for an entire year.
Okay, so let me ask you this. How many times does your certifying agency give the exam?
Twice a year, August and
And
February.
is it in person or is it online?
It is in person.
Okay, so everybody has to travel to get the test.
Yes,
Okay, so you said August and when?
February.
August and February. So basically, it's right after graduation.
3 months
Graduate
after.
mid-year
Yeah.
or regular semester, right?
So 3 months to 9 months after graduation. And some people, because they're moving, they aren't able, or conflicting dates, they're not able to take it until that following February.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. We graduate people in June, May and
May.
June,
Mhm.
so they can take it in August.
Mhm.
We graduate people sometimes in mid-year, December or January.
We don't.
No school that does it graduates them any other time.
0. Yeah.
So then
May.
everybody graduates at the end of May or June. And they can take it in August.
Some can, some can't, because they might be moving halfway across the country to
But
find a
this is their life
job.
and
I
their
mean, there's
career. I mean,
not.
it's kind of like, we have to, if we want to get licensed as a physician, we have to finish that examination or we can't get licensed.
To me, like the step thing is more of like a part of medical school
No,
that,
it
I
is
mean, they
not.
might
The
take it right
examination is-
afterwards, but
It is the
it's,
required examination that the board uses to license a physician, to grant an unrestricted license.
so that just might not be as equivalent to what our board exams are. Because I think that this like puts a lot of people in it currently, one that we know of right now, and this is just one that I know of, but it's gonna put a decent number of people in a bind. They're not gonna be able to be hired or get health insurance or start practicing by being board eligible in our state.
But
And then
board
we're gonna have a
eligible
lot of
is
people who
not-
aren't gonna
okay,
come
you call
here.
it, but again, they've not, let's go back and read the rules here, okay? All right. Let's see. To qualify for the license, master's degree, a doctoral degree, meet the examination requirements for certification as either of the following: certified by the American Board of Genetic Counseling or the American Medical Genetics and Genomics, or the successor of these entities. So that's the rules that have been enforced for forever.
Right, and then right under it, under B1, the board may issue a temporary license to an applicant who meets all of the following conditions.
Key operational word is may. And with the
But
board
that has been the
decided-
working assumption since we started this. I am telling you, like, genetic counselors will not come to Louisiana if they know that they cannot practice without having passed their board exam first.
Well, I will, with all due respect, the number of genetic counselors that are in Louisiana is less than 30% of the number of genetic counselors we license. Okay? We license more genetic counselors outside of Louisiana than inside of Louisiana.
Oh, like people who provide remote care.
Remote
Yeah.
care, yes, we did. So number of, and they're all, again, this is the problem. Because we have so many people doing remote, okay? And it's actually more of you all doing remote than in Louisiana, okay? So the key here operational word is may is in there for the issue of an emergency. And the board wanted to take that for all of our licensed classes. Okay, now I can certainly convey to the board that you all would ask the board to change that. I'm happy to do that for you. Okay.
I would like to do that myself. I think we should be present for that.
Okay, well, again, I will tell you this, I will get you on the agenda. Let's make sure I tell you the right day, because I don't want to tell you the wrong day, because if I do, I'll be upset. I always check this rather than just tell people. So give me a second and I'll tell you the exact day.
The 28th.
28th. It's a Monday.
Okay,
The
July
last meeting of the
28th.
month. And if
Okay.
this is going to be in the morning. And if you want, I'll put it very early in the agenda so that you can be there and go.
That would be great.
Okay. Most part, the board allows 3 minutes to give your information, and then the board will take it under advisement, take your public comment under advisement. They may not make a decision at the board at all. They may make a decision later. They may tell us to do some more research, whatever we'll operate the whatever way the board operates. I'm happy to do
Yeah,
that. for
because
you.
especially in our case, there,
Ask a question, what's different in your case than a respiratory therapist, than a physician, than a clinical laboratory specialist, or an athletic trainer?
I think number one, it's like the limited timing for the exams. This isn't something that is available all of the time. It's twice a year. And there's a limited number of positions. Somebody may be moving from halfway across the country. And if we can't tell them that they can at least have a temporary license because they're board eligible, they've graduated with a master's, they've done all graduation requirements, but they can't start working here because we don't offer temporary licenses.
Okay, can you show me in the genetic
And just to share,
counseling-
like, for example, at our
Okay, wait a
own
minute. Does the
institution,
American Board of Genetic Counseling have a
Yes.
recognized term of board eligibility? Because
Yes.
no medical specialty, all medical specialty boards have given up that. They say board qualified, but not board eligible.
we say board eligible for up to 5 years after graduation. I believe Hannah or
I'll
Hillary
check
or
on that to
Nikki,
be
do
sure. I'll
y'all
check
know?
with
But
that.
I believe it's for 5 years. And if you have not passed your boards in that time, you're no longer board eligible. And you would have
So you
to
want
go
us to
back
give
to
a
school.
5-year temporary license?
No. What we had been doing, you could only, what were we doing? Was it for a year? And we were allowing people to fail up to one time.
Right, so the expectation would be that you would be licensed completely by the end of February when that board round is complete.
Yeah. So we're essentially issuing a temporary license, we can say for like 1 to 2 years max. And that within that time, you should be able to pass your boards.
Can you tell me what are the active candidate status requirements for certification?
The graduating from an accredited genetic counseling training program within the last 5 years, or I think so.
I don't know the timing.
Can I do some research on what your board or the American Board of Medical Genetics and Genomics requires to become, quote, board eligible? Because what I'm concerned about is, while we may issue a temporary license, okay, they may not have even applied for the test.
Yeah, there's a lot. This is Patricia. I'm sorry. There are a lot of factors that are going to go into this for the board's consideration. We hear your concerns loud and clear, and we definitely will place you on the agenda. But there are a lot of moving parts to this that affect all the other license classes. So the legal staff and the executive staff are going to have to do a lot of research into this to be able to advise the board appropriately on your request, which I very much empathize with you. I very much do, and I understand everything you've said, but it's not going to be resolved in this discussion today. And we'll put you on the agenda and you can make your points, and then we'll be prepared to give the board our thoughts and concerns as well, when they go into executive discussion, executive.
Yeah, because I mean, I understand doing an indefinite temporary license is not good for anybody, but for us, it was very much defined with the expectation that you're taking your boards and passing them within the first year. And if you can't do that, then you're no longer eligible for a license. So it was a defined period of time that allowed people to start practicing, because we don't offer board exams every month of the year or even every other month of the year.
I'd
Yeah,
like to
I-
add
We're
just
gonna-
as
we're
a,
gonna do
at an
some research.
aside as well, the providers who are board eligible, who are in this kind of in-between time and working with a temporary license, are receiving direct supervision from a board certified genetic counselor. None of these people are practicing in isolation. They are not legally allowed to do so based on what's been outlawed in the line.
Okay, well, then
Alright.
if we're gonna issue them, then we're gonna have, and that's why I want to, it says, and this is what the rules say in 2A, shall apply for and take the next available examination for certification. So if they graduate in June and don't apply for the August exam, they're not qualified for the temporary license anyway.
Right.
Right,
It's-
but
it's a
they
one-time
might,
Deal, yeah.
yeah, but they might fail their
And then
first
they're not
time and then need to take it again
They
in
don't, that's
February.
not allowed. The
It
board shall
is.
not issue a temporary license to an individual who has failed to pass the examination more than one time.
They can fail
A
at one
time.
time.
So you can fail one time and then retake it.
Okay, well, listen, I'm just gonna tell you that there a ton of thought went into this, and a lot of considerations, particularly the safety of the public, et cetera, and also the fact that these temporary licenses get lost in the wind. And we're gonna do a deep dive on the temporary licenses that are practicing in Louisiana, the anecdotal history of how they take their exams and subsequently become licensed if they do. And by all means present your best case, and I'm not unsympathetic, I promise you that. But we have a hard time with so many license classes. Everybody's got a reason, and the board has to make policy that is consistent for everybody across the board. So just keep that in mind. No one is discounting anything that you're saying. And the board is extremely reasonable. It will always be a may. I just want to make that clear. It will never be a shall. It'll always be a may. But as I say, it's not going to be decided in this conversation today, but we'll have a good discussion with the board on the 28th. And then as I say, the executive staff and the legal staff, I'll buttress your concerns with our thoughts, and then the board will make a decision.
Yeah. And then just to share our own institution's experience, we were able to double our workforce in the last year because we were able to hire new graduates who knew that they could come and get a temporary license, and they went on to pass their boards and get a full license. But if they knew that they could not practice or obtain a job here, I don't know how we would have hired them. So that, I mean, we had 3 new, four, five, six. We had 6 new genetic counselors who were all new graduates. And
Yeah, and
I-
you guys may say this is neither here nor there, but because these are other states, but it's very common when you look for job openings for genetic counselor across the US and multiple other states. Generally, the job descriptions or for candidates say board certified or board eligible genetic counselors. This is a very common thing across the states.
And again, your law says something a little different. And we apply the law. We're certainly going to look into it. We've got to take your comments. We'll do some deep dive into research. Again, what we will probably do, we'll let you make your case in July. We'll do the research and report back to the board in the August meeting, and they'll probably be able to make a decision then.
okay.
All right.
All right, well, we'll plan on the morning of July 28th and we can talk amongst ourselves to see exactly who is able to be present to make that.
That's great. Look
case.
forward to it.
Okay. All right. And any public comments so far?
None at this time, ma'am.
Okay. And let's see. So it says committee member president discussion. That may
Consideration of
be,
replacement candidates.
yeah.
That's for,
Um,
sorry.
no, sorry, Hillary, go ahead.
I mean, I think that was just we lost Emily Nazar last year because she moved, and it's kind of the same thing. We just been needing to get replacements for her, and we need to replace Alex and me because if we haven't already surpassed our time, we are going to surpass it soon. And I don't think we've heard anything back from repeated attempts to give candidate information to the board. Is that correct, Alex?
Yeah, so Dr. Van, you sent an email connecting me to Ryan Roberts back on January 29th. I immediately responded to him. I sent a follow-up email. I never heard back from Ryan Roberts. So that was our last attempt 6 months ago to find out what happened to the appointment. Because
Okay,
we
well,
have
let
a
me-
candidate who's willing to serve and we
Again.
can't get her on.
Let me read the law. The law says that the advisory committee shall be composed of 5 persons appointed by the governor.
Mhm.
I can't, if the governor's office doesn't appoint, I can't do anything at all, okay? And people who decide not to serve anymore, most people can serve even if they're not reappointed. But the issue is, I can't change what the governor's office does, okay? The governor makes those decisions himself, not me, not our board, okay? You all chose to have this, when you designed this law, that it was going to be appointed by the governor. If the governor doesn't appoint, I can't do anything. So my answer to you is, I will call Ryan Roberts, but he's actually gone. He's not there anymore. I'll give you the contact person on the new name, and you can call and I can call. But again, they usually like 3 nominees from each for each position, but I'm happy to get you in contact with them. It's really a governor's office function. It's not a board or agency function.
Right. So, but every time we've needed or told or informed you that we need to appoint someone, we're handling it the only way we know how. If there's somebody I should be presenting this information to directly, I'm happy to do that.
Again, the director of boards and commissions, and I don't have it, I have it somewhere. He just changed. Ryan is no longer there, but I will get that to you, Alex, later on today. And you can contact them and ask what's going on.
And is there a different way that other professions handle appointments?
Okay, I speak only for the Board of Medical Examiners and nobody else. And some are appointed by the governor, some are appointed by the board itself. But again, we follow the law and do what the law says. We don't really have a choice in that regard.
And for the
It's
most
just-
part, this is how other boards do it. I know when I was at the AG's office, we had some interaction with the boards and commissions, and depending on how each committee is structured and their nominating process, like interested parties will send the nominations to the governor at different times, and then the governor just picks it. So I mean, like that is the conduit to get these done. The board's not the one to submit those. Or is not the one that making the final decision. So I think pestering, their boards and commissions office would probably be the right thing. That was probably because of session that there was such a lag time because they were busy handling everything. So now that that's over, I would, restart those efforts.
Okay. Yeah, because when the law was written, it was other states and how other professions in this state structured it. That's how it was all based on. It wasn't.
Again, some of our advisory committees are appointed by us in the law, and some of them are appointed by the governor. So the people that wrote the law, this is what they asked for, and this is what the legislature passed.
Yeah, that's fine. We just need the right contact person, and then we can handle that directly. Okay. Any other comments about that, or any public comments?
No public comments at this time, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so the next agenda item was something that we had discussed at the last committee meeting, the statement of position for the CPA, because we had discussed how some genetic counselors were having issues at their institutions because what the CPA governed and what it was necessary for was getting confused, and genetic counselors were having difficulty, or administrators at different institutions were having difficulty understanding. So the action item from the last committee meeting was that there was going to be a statement position developed that the committee would review so that it could be posted on LSBME's website.
We have it. It would be best discussed, since it's still a work product of our attorneys, to be done in executive session. And
Okay.
then y'all can decide what you want to recommend changes to it or whatever you want to do.
Great.
And-
Okay.
and because it's really not public property until the board discusses it at the meeting.
Okay.
So
All right, then we'll
if you
do
would
that
make a motion to put that in executive session under attorney's advice, we will do that and move on to the next item on the agenda.
Okay, I motion to transfer
Second.
it to the executive session. Okay. All right, well then the last agenda item for the public session would be the board exam rules. I mean, this is not really applicable at the moment, given the lack of temporary licensure available, but there have been issues with our board exam over the last couple of years, to the point where the new statistics, I think it was only a 52% pass rate. And there's now an investigation into the board exam of what is happening. So there are competent, clinically sound genetic counselors who are unable to pass because the structure of the board exam has completely changed since any of the four of us graduated school and took our boards. So one thing that we were considering that other states have done as well is allowing new graduates to fail twice. Still limiting it, but allowing them to fail twice and to be able to take it a third time before not being eligible for a genetic counselor license until the American Board of Genetic Counselors is able to determine what is happening. Is it education? Is it the students? Is it the board exam itself? So yeah, do y'all have any other
I have a question
comments
for you.
after that summary?
If you don't mind, this is Patricia. I have a question for you. Does the accrediting agency or the exam agency have any limits on the amount of times a person can take the exam?
No, they don't. It's just, or sorry, Hannah, did you,
I thought it was 3 times. Is that an
within
old?
a 5-year period?
I believe so. I could
Yeah.
be mistaken, but that was the number that jumped in my head.
Okay. Because I thought it was more about a time limit, like you could take it as long as you continue to be board eligible within that 5 years. But most states that have passed licensure laws have also limited the number of times somebody can fail, because at a certain point, if you keep failing, you're going to keep failing. We were on the stricter side, but at a point when our boards had a much higher pass rate. So it was a much more of a red flag if you did fail. And now it's just much more common with like very competent students that have just graduated. I mean, with a 52% pass rate, it's just been, and it's become abysmal. It's gone down every time, I think, for the last 2 years.
So that'll be fascinating to see what the results of the investigation are, because historically, board exams such as the CPA exam, the bar exam, etc., the pass rates usually are reflective of the competency of the test taker. So it'll be interesting to see if that doesn't pan out for your exam.
Yeah,
made a
'cause-
good
and I
note.
think historically it has
Yeah.
been reflective. And over the last, I'd say what, y'all, like 3 or so years, it has just not been.
I want to jump in and apologize very quickly. I was incorrect about that 3 times limit. That's a different exam.
Okay, so they could take it 2 times a year for 5 years. If that's how often it's offered, is twice a year, you say, and then they have 5 years to pass it. I'm just gonna give you a heads up, the board's not gonna go that long as far as
I don't even think we'd recommend that.
Yeah.
It's-
But
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'll be fascinated to hear the results of that investigation. Dr. Bain,
Again,
you wanted to say
one
something?
thing, it's easier if these things are in the rules, but when they're in the law, we have less opportunity to change them, okay? And what we want to do is, we used to have a 4-fail rule. But the board has asked us, whenever we have a Louisiana citizen and that's a Louisiana graduate and they're having trouble with the boards, we impose no limits on their ability to take the test. That doesn't mean that they're able to be licensed. It just means that we'll support them taking the test. Because a lot of times a board has to support people to take the test. So for example, we have had physicians who have not been able to pass all of the steps. They've graduated from medical school, have good recommendations, but we cannot license them because they do not meet the requirements of having finished the USMLE test battery. And so we allow them to take those tests as many times as they want, but we can't license them in Louisiana until they pass. So again, so you'll understand where the board's coming from. We want to support Louisiana grads, Louisiana citizens, but we don't necessarily license them. We just support them in taking the test as many times as they need to take it. So but again, we're kind of constrained because your law specifically says one thing.
Yeah, I think, but also I think because the nature of our profession, it's almost like our board exams are more like the specialty exams that physicians go
Well, but
through.
again, regardless of the nature, I'm constrained by and must apply the law. Okay, and so nowhere in the law does it say, if the nature of the exams change this law. The law has to be changed, okay, to allow what you're asking us, but we'll certainly present it to the board. We'll take it under advisement. I have 2 wonderful lawyers who will review this. And if we need outside counsel, we will, but I doubt we will. And then we'll present it to the board with the staff's recommendations and legal recommendations at the following meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what's in the law, we have almost no leeway to deal with.
Right, and we could, the point was to discuss this and see how we want to move forward, because if we need to request an amendment to change the law, then that's something that we need to move forward with doing.
Well, do you know where they are in their investigation?
Only a couple of months in. I mean, we
Okay.
haven't received any updates since the board of Genetic Counseling told us they were starting it. I can
Right.
certainly ask, but I don't know that they're anywhere close. This was just, I think there was a lot of upheaval after the February exams with the really poor pass rate and a lot of program directors at training programs who complained and asked questions and like really
Sure.
incited the need for
Sure.
an investigation. So it was just started a couple of months ago. So I don't really know
No, that's
where.
fine. If and when you get updates, if you pass those along, that'll help us with our analysis too, because again, I'm very sympathetic to the idea of what appear to be fully trained, competent via the school's opinion anyway, because they graduated them, and then
Right.
not being able to pass that hurdle to get their certification. So
Yeah. And then we just want to be in line with what other states are doing too.
Yeah, that's
Um,
not a huge selling point for us. I'll just be straight up with you. There are states who are extremely liberal about the public protection aspect of their regulations. We're not really one of them, but the empirical evidence that you can provide from the investigation will help us plead your case.
Yeah. I at least meant as far as, allowing a second fail.
Sure.
And again, if the second fail was in the rules, the board can suspend the rules in a heartbeat. The board cannot suspend the law.
Right.
And that's what I need you to understand. And we will help you in any way we can. We are sympathetic, as Pat said, but some of these things are, and that's the danger of writing too much stuff in the law instead of in the rules. But this is how you proposed it to the legislature, and that's what the legislature gave us. And I can only deal with what the law is. And our agency can only deal with what the law is. And the board can only authorize what the law allows.
Yeah. So, I mean, Hannah and Hillary and Nikki, I mean, what are your thoughts on trying to amend the law, given all the problems we know are going on?
I'm actually kind of looking at some documents and I'm not sure. I think I'm looking at the law and I don't know if it actually says how many times you can fail. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about this before.
So they have it
up
pulled up right here.
It's right there. Okay. Got it.
Isn't that section just explicitly for temporary licensure though? A temporary
No.
license shall not be, or
You can't get a permanent license until you get the boards. So, and it says that they can only pass one, they have to fail only one time, okay?
For permanent licensure.
It says the board shall not issue a temporary license to any individual who has failed to pass the examination, the certification more than one time.
Right, but I think we're talking about permanent licensure at this point.
Right, but Nikki, it's
Temporary.
it's like the transitive property. If A
Okay,
plus
up
B
above here,
equals C, then
it says that the requirements are, and these are the genetic counselor requirements, A 1, 2, 3. And then here we go, 3A, a doctoral degree, and meets the examination requirements, the certification by either of the American Board of Genetic Counseling or the American Board of Medical Genetics and Genomics. Or
right.
So
in theory, you could not be like, you could lose your temporary license, take it 15 times, and then apply for a permanent license.
that's true. Or you could have taken it a third time in a different state and come here and yeah.
Right. You would just, if you lapse or like any in between time between that temporary and, permanent license. And then if the board does decide to not issue those temporary licenses except an emergency, then that limit isn't applied to anything. And then there's it's whenever you pass.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, part of the issue of not explicitly writing it in, right? But yeah, I guess for us it was like, well, if somebody already does have a license, we don't know, because it used to be even worse, like you could only take your exam like once every 3 years. So there are GCs who have been practicing for like 2 decades and the board exams were the same as the medical genetics boards. So I don't think we wanted to limit people who are in a different situation, but it does, yeah, it could impact mostly new graduates, which are the main source of getting new genetic counselors in the state of Louisiana.
Well, technically, since there is no compact for genetic counselors at this time, anybody who's licensed in another state wants to apply for a license here, they still have to have passed the board. Or they wouldn't get the license in Louisiana, even though they're licensed in their home state.
Right.
Because again, we just simply apply the law as it's written.
So yeah, I mean, Nikki, you're right. That area, that might not apply to somebody who took it 3 times and passed, 15 years ago and is moving here because they have,
And also,
Yeah.
if we are not able to issue temporary licenses, this conversation is moot, if I'm making the
Right.
assumption correctly, that
it
we
it
no
is.
longer have a restriction in the law, we just
Right.
have regular licenses.
Yeah,
Because
I
restriction,
know. That's how I prefaced it. Like it's not really applicable at the moment until we know what's going to happen with temporary licensure.
Alex,
But yeah, that was the original thought behind.
okay, if I would make a suggestion to you, rather than one person trying to address all of these issues in 3 minutes, which is what usually the board allows, is to have one person address the issue of temporaries, one address the issue of the number of failures, one address the issue of board replacement, and that way each person gets 3 minutes, but you're confining it. I think it would go better for you if you did it that way. Now, obviously, well, the 3 minutes are what you can say. Sometimes a board member will have a question. I can't predict that. But the most of the time, they take everything you say under advisement, and then the board, we do the legal work and give them a recommendation at the next meeting, and they do what they want to do after that point. But again,
Dr. Van, I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting. I don't actually think anything other than the temporary license issue needs to be on the July agenda. They're still gathering the information about the testing irregularities or whether there's some defect in the test. I don't think they're ready to talk about that yet. I
it's
know
fine.
I'm
If
certainly
they don't
not
want to
ready
talk about it, we'll talk about it another
Yeah.
time.
And then
Yeah,
the board's
it's more 'cause
nominations
they
have to
won't.
go through the governor's office anyway, so there's not really a need for anyone to address that. I think if Alex can come or whoever they designate or one or more people want to come and talk about the temporary license issue, I think that's the urgent thing that needs to be addressed in July.
Okay. Yeah, because if we can at least address the temporary licensure first, then we can go back and say, okay, well, now this can take effect again. We can do this, but do we want to let people fail twice, given all of the issues with the recent board exam? And then we can move forward with trying to amend the law, since that's what's written in the law and not a board issue.
Fine with me. All right.
Okay. Yeah, any other comments about those agenda items? Okay. Any public comments?
1 second, and I will check. There are no public comments at this time.
Okay, so I think the main agenda items is we'll talk amongst ourselves as far as who will present on July 28th, and then Dr. Van, if you have that new contact so that we can get a replacement on the committee. And then I think we'll just move to the executive session to discuss the statement of position.
And if the person that's assigned to come wants to do it by Zoom, we can arrange that for them as well.
Okay.
All right, so they need a motion to go in executive session, take a minute to transfer everybody into the executive session room, and then we'll take up the matter.
All right. A motion to move to the executive session.
I'll second.
I didn't hear a vote. I heard a second, but I didn't hear a vote.
Oh, sorry. All in favor,
They're
say
gone
aye.
now. They're gone now.
Yes.
Okay. We better go over there as well, Alex. Let's just go.
Hey, everyone, thanks for a very productive committee meeting. And I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
Any opposed? Hearing none, thank you very much for all of your time. The board truly does appreciate your input. And like I said, if somebody wants to appear by Zoom, just let me know. We'll send them a Zoom invitation and you can make your presentation to the board by Zoom. And you don't necessarily need to be here.
And then, but it's any time in the morning, correct?
It's going to be whenever the board takes the matter up in the morning, which is why it might
Gotcha.
be easy to do it by Zoom. When-
So we usually
it'll
just
be on the
park
agenda.
you, yeah, we just park you in a little waiting room, and when that agenda items comes up, we join you.
Yeah. Okay. All
Thanks.
right. Well, thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.